What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Other Guys on the Badlands podcast network. I'm Jake Chatsky, joined as always by Paul Kilgallen. Paul, how you doing? How you feeling on this lovely Sunday early record for us?
I'm good. I'm in a food coma. I spent 14 hours smoking a corned beef
Ooh.
and then I ate way too much at dinner, and so I'm bouncing back a little bit. It was good to get this on the schedule, so hop into the chair, feel alive again. I will say I saw you appropriating my culture on Instagram this weekend. I don't appreciate it, but other than that, happy St. Patrick's Day, Jake. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all you guys listening out there, because I'm sure this is airing Monday morning, and I'm good. Let's get into the free agents.
Yeah, LA, notorious St. Patty's Day celebrating city. No, but I was amongst your people, found a nice Irish bar, had to split the G, had to tell the world about it, obviously.
A
So
little
thank you
vitamin
for
G.
giving me a little shit for that. It's well deserved. All right, so like you said, let's get into free agency. We're 1 week removed, basically, from the start of free agency, or a little earlier when this airs. It'll be 1 week. Let's start just, overall sentiments. There's been a lot of, if you're a Badlands fan and you're listening to every show on the feed, which I assume a lot of our listeners are doing, you've heard a lot about the individual days. So looking at it from like a macro level, Paul, what's the overall grade you would give this free agent class 1 week into free agency?
I feel like I always do this to you, Jake, but I give you like non-answers to these very good questions you ask. But I feel like it's just hard to grade. Like, look, if we're taking face value and we're looking at the players that you signed, it's an underwhelming list, right? There's 4 players with guaranteed money. Everybody else is kind of a flyer that didn't really work out on their first team. We're heavy on the 2021 draft class. Justin Fields, extremely affordable contract for a quarterback. Brandon Stevens, kind of an expensive contract for D-back. Whether he's a safety or a cornerback, we'll see. I am in the firm belief that he is a safety. I don't think it's an accident. I don't think people screw up their website and accidentally put your position on. Cisco, I think, is one that everybody, we're having a hard time finding anybody saying a bad word about the Cisco signing. And then Myers is a good depth piece on the line. And then other than that, it's a lot of dart throws, right? So I think if you take that all at face value and we go back to how we normally operate as Jets fans in the offseason, as, undefeated offseason champs, we're going to win it every time, all that stuff. Like, this is underwhelming. This is a different tact for us in the offseason, where there hasn't really been anything splashy outside of Justin Fields. And even that on the splashometer is not like super high. We've been talking about that for months. So like, I think that if I were just going surface level, like, I'd give it like a C plus, B minus, but I also, like, we don't know what we don't know with this regime yet, right? Like, I'm of the firm belief that in this upcoming football season, we're going to truly see and feel what the value of coaching is, provided that Glenn is good. And we think he's going to be good, right? We thought Salah was going to be good. So nothing's guaranteed. But I think that we're going to feel what the value of coaching is. And I am leaning towards this team getting more production with less talent in the next year than it has at any point really in the last 4 years. And we're going to realize, oh, wow, that the previous staff was actually really bad. And we're on better footing moving forward. So look, sometimes the splashy free agent signings don't work out. I'd almost venture to say more often than not, they don't work out. And so, like I said, eye test, this is a little underwhelming, but I am willing, because we're in the first year, to give the benefit of the doubt and like see how this pans out and see what the rest of the plans are. And maybe it was as simple as them feeling like they have a good base of talent on this roster and a lot of stuff they can work with, and feeling like they didn't need to augment with something huge. They could just make a move here and there and supplement in the draft and all that. So I'm trying not to rush to judgment, I guess, is the best way to sum up everything I just said. Like, I don't want to jump down their throats. And, we've gotten to the point where, like, like, everybody gets excited about a Derek Nandi signing because he's like a guy that's been on the Chiefs for 5 years and he knows how to win and all that, but he's like not really a super impact player. And it's almost reached like a sarcastic level at this point, where everybody's like over celebrating these very small minor moves. But like I said, I'm willing to give it time. How are you feeling?
I literally said fuck out loud when you said your grade because I have C plus B minus written down here. And like I
That's why we're
I mean
together, baby.
I think you hit the nail on the head a little bit too, of just the the Jets did not go out there, and we're used to them, winning the offseason. Like, that's been a common mantra. And I don't necessarily think that we were expecting them to go out on a spending spree. Like, I think the teams that usually win the offseason, or at least are successful, like making the splashiest move in free agency, are like two types of teams. One that is building around a lot of young players on like early rookie contracts at quarterback position, or even their like our key young guys are later on in their rookie deals and have identified themselves as players who deserve to be paid. So it's not like we just hit on a stellar draft class. It's like we got 4 years of these guys being underpaid. Let's build around them now. The Jets aren't in that position, and they certainly aren't in that position when it comes to the quarterback. We're paying a shit ton of dead money.
And by the way, that happened already. We went out and got Aaron Rodgers. We signed edge rushers. Like we went nuts the last couple of years. It didn't work. Sorry, go ahead.
The other type of team that I think makes splashy moves in free agency is a team that's like, the proverbial one piece away. The Eagles go out and they acquire Saquon and Mekhi, and it boosts their team to a championship level. I'm not going to give Mekhi that much credit, but I just mean pieces along the O-line. But they go out and they add that one last piece, right? The Jets are clearly not a team that's one piece away. So I think while this class has been underwhelming, they've also, like we said, go out with, Operation Fat has sort of not taken off in the way that I think we all hoped going into free agency. There's plans for that coming up with the draft, but I do think fans wanted the Jets to go out and get Justin Fields, a guy who could compete with Tyrod and like raise the floor of what this team could be. They went out and did that. Wanted them to address the safety position. They've done that maybe with two players, but certainly with one in a free agent signing that we've all loved in Andre Sisco. And so I think they've done the baseline of what we were expecting, but it's not like we are looking at this class and being like, wow, they fucking patched up all the holes on this roster and absolutely nailed it. And there's a lot of guys, like you mentioned, who are flyers, but I think that's an okay position for year one of this regime to take when, like you mentioned, we don't know what players are going to excel in this Glenn scheme more, like patch up some of the warts that we thought this team had coming out of last year. Like, especially the last, it was more than that, the last 10 weeks of the season last year post Salah when Ulbrich was way in over his head. It's tough to do a full evaluation of a lot of guys that are sticking around on the roster on just last season. So I think not going on a spending spree year one and doing a full sale evaluation of this team, while it may not be what Jets fans want to hear, is potentially a conservative right move and probably the way that this regime will start.
Yeah, agreed. And to your point about not knowing what certain guys will look like in the scheme, I mean, did anybody celebrate the signing of Alex Anzalone in Detroit? No. You know what I mean? When Glenn brought over a bunch of guys with him from New Orleans, did anybody say, oh, that's going to be the X factor? Because he's got no, right? So sometimes you just don't know. Now, where I think it's fair to criticize is when you get into specific players, right? And you mentioned Operation Fat. And like, look, Javon Kinlaw getting $45 million at 15 AAV is insane. Milton Williams getting $26 million from and by the way, the Patriots are another story that's like kind of worth mentioning. It's funny to be on the other side of it now, to see them spending like drunken sailors and us being way, way more conservative. And I'm not saying that it equates to winning and losing or anything. It's just, it's objectively odd to kind of be on the other side of that table from the Patriots right now. And again, spending $26 million on Milton Williams is a lot of money. Jonathan Allen got 17. Tershawn Wharton got 15. Hargrave got 15. Tomlinson got almost 15. I think Tomlinson was one everybody wanted, but like at $15 million a year, like really? Now you go down that list a little bit and it's like, well, Rankins got 5. Poona Ford got 9. Like, couldn't we have swung that? Right. So I think there are certainly specific players in specific areas where you can be critical of this and say, hey, like, it's not even really a debate. Like, we know that there's a hole in this position and you really didn't do much to address it. Now, one of the guys on the pod the other day was talking about, do they like the kid from Miami last year, Leonard Taylor? And is he taking a step forward? And maybe that's why they're not addressing defensive tackle. Like, maybe, but they haven't been around him for a full season either. So I'm not sure that that as your plan A, like an undrafted rookie as your plan A, or an undrafted guy in his second year who played not a ton in his rookie year is plan A. But so like I think you can be critical in those spots to your point, but taking it back to when you kicked it over to me before, like sometimes you just don't know who the good guys on this team are going to be because, like I said, nobody celebrated Alex Anzalone signing with the Lions.
So one free agent addition that we talked about last week as like plan A was to go get Justin Fields, and the Jets did that. 40 million over 2 years, 30 million of that guaranteed. But one thing I don't think we've really hit on is like we were saying, go get this guy. We didn't necessarily say what our expectations for him were. And I think, I think the way we were talking about it could come off as like this guy is going to fix everything, which I don't think was ever the case for either of us. He was just the clearest option of like all the quarterbacks who were available. This is the one that we wanted to target. But Paul, I want to ask you, like, what are your expectations for Justin Fields going into this season?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the list of signed quarterbacks, and obviously Rodgers and Cousins are still out there, but like you look at the list of signed quarterbacks, it's Sam Darnold, which wasn't happening, despite how much I
Correct.
wanted it. Then Justin Fields, and then I'm just going to run through these names: Daniel Jones, Jacoby Brissett, Cooper Rush, Josh Dobbs, Mason Rudolph, Marcus Mariota, Mac Jones, Taylor Heineke, Zach Wilson, Nick Mullins, Kyle Trask, Brandon Allen, Bailey Zappi, Kyle Allen, Gardner Minshew. So like he was the only option. Justin Fields was the only option we had, and to their credit, they went out and got it done. I think expectation wise, what I would love to get to, and this is kind of a subjective, foggy thing, but what I would love to get to is to like the 3/4 point at the season where we're not arguing about was this the right move or not. It's just like, yeah, no, this was the right signing for them to make. Maybe he's not lighting the world on fire. Maybe he's not in like all pro talk or anything like that, but just like, hey, this was a success. It would be nice to get to that place. And what does that look like? I think that probably looks like a minimum of, I want to say 500 to 700 rushing yards. Please get 3,000 yards passing. Please get over 20 touchdowns and try to limit the interceptions as much as possible. If we can get to that spot, I feel like it's a win, right? And especially if we can find a way to make our way at least into the playoff conversation. Let's go baby steps because we've been talking playoffs the last few years and we haven't even sniffed it. So baby steps, playoff conversation, and again, it's a little bit subjective, but just like being halfway 3/4 through the year and being like, yeah, no, this was a good signing, that would be a relieving place for me to be, I think. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's I don't necessarily, to your point, I don't necessarily think I expect playoffs. I don't know that like I've heard with talk about Fields like, oh, maybe the ceiling is like a 9-8 team, which is maybe more reasonable and realistic than I'm being right now. But I do think it's a little higher than that. Maybe a 10-win season with Justin Fields. That might be crazy. I would say though, like my barrier for failure is like if we win more games with him than we did with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, which was 5. I will point that out again. It was only 5. That is my barrier barometer for complete and utter failure. Like obviously Rodgers was kind of a shell of himself last year, but he did end up putting up a lot of bulk statistics that are embarrassingly high in the Jets organizational charts towards the end of the year. Some of it was stat padding in the red zone, call it what it is. But I think if Fields can go out and like if we win more games with Justin Fields as our quarterback than we did with Aaron Rodgers. And I will say this too, if we can have some of those games where the ball is in our hands and we need to drive the field and score a field goal or drive the field and score a touchdown, win 1 or 2 of those games next year, that's what I'm going to measure as success. Because I don't think the way that this roster is constructed, any rational Jets fan is expecting a Super Bowl or like sustained playoff success. Do I hope this team can make the playoffs next year in the first year of Glenn? Absolutely. Am I expecting that to be the outcome as it stands right now? No. And so my expectation for him, where I will consider this like you did not meet my expectations, is if we can't beat that Aaron Rodgers win mark. That's the bar I'm holding him to as of right now. And I
I
know that
think
QB wins aren't a QB stat, but like